Okay.
Floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. This application refers to a detached property at Bradford Street in Falmouth. The application sought benefits from planning permission for change of use from a dwelling to an office, which was granted in 2018. Whilst the planning permission was implemented and change of use has taken place, due to COVID-19 and people working remotely, the offices have been closed. The current planning application applies for change of use from the office back to its residential use. This will, however, operate as supported living accommodation, which is different from case assisted living. What this means in practice is that 6 teenagers living there don't require individual care and support, and they will live and they will be able to live there because they are ready to live independently and have the ability to go to school and work by themselves, and will have keys to come and go from the property as they like. The agent clarified that there will always be at least one member of staff working at the premises on 24/7 rota. However, none of them will occupy the premises on permanent basis. It is noted that a high number of objections have been received, mainly raising concerns over antisocial behaviour. Whilst antisocial behaviour is not a material planning consideration, the applicant, CFS Care, clarified that they have a number of supported living properties in Manchester, one in Bolton on Bury Road, when they've never had any problems with any of the occupiers. In addition, they've been confirmed by Children's Services to be a reputable organisation that should be capable of managing the residents in a professional manner. The application is recommended for approval by officers, and the applicant will be happy with 2 years temporary consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I now invite ward councillors, please? Councillor Patterson. Councillor Patterson, you've got 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Can I say that I have grave concerns with this application and agree with all the points made by the residents and councillors what are involved in this application. It really worries me that planning considerations are cold and fixed without taking into consideration the wider implications of the community. Youth behaviour can and often does carry an ongoing detrimental burden for the police, youth services, social services, local communities. The true cost is huge and often ongoing. It is vital that we get it right for these young people who unfortunately have had a disadvantage in life, and who we pair them with is also important and matters a lot. Like other areas, we also suffer with antisocial behaviour, which is not being dealt with, and that is down to government cuts, lack of capacity. This area as well for me is a concern because it is very easily connected to other areas: Kersley, Newbury, Walkden, Littleton. They're all known for drug runs and criminal activity. CSS Care say call the local police. The police that are not carrying out on calls as it is, again due to lack of capacity and cuts on their behalf. CSS Care also mention educational work in a time and area where there is no employment or resources, again due to cuts from central government. The Safeguarding Children, Adult and Analyst framework aims to reduce the risk of re-abuse or future harm through successful intervention. I'm sorry, but this will not be a success. They're coming to an area where there is very limited or non-existent intervention. It will be a failure for the young people and also the wider community. They cannot trust safeguarding. They cannot even guarantee safeguarding. The measures are, again, to call the police. Therefore, possibly criminalising these young people before they even get a start on future life. In my mind, that goes against CG4, compatible uses, safety and security. And it also goes against point S1 of Bolton's core strategy document, the need to reduce crime and fear when looking at developments. This area is predominantly elderly. 57 residents have come forward to raise strong concerns. I really hope this committee takes these points on board and objects to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Councillor Cunningham, you have 5 minutes also to address committee.
Thank you, Chair. Can you still hear me? I better check before I start.
We can indeed.
Good. Okay, thank you, Chair. It'd probably be an understatement to say that this application has generated strong emotional response from some of the residents living in close proximity to the site. However, having considered the written objections from the residents and the views expressed in a Zoom meeting between residents and the applicants, I have a slightly different view on this. Whilst understanding that people are naturally wary of change, I'm yet to be persuaded that the concerns expressed regarding this application would actually come to pass. Fears expressed by residents of it bringing crime to the neighbourhood, whilst perfectly understandable, appear to contradict the letters of objection received, which state that this actually exists and paints an image of it almost living in the Wild West in some cases. Although this itself has been contradicted by other residents who say they've lived there for years and don't recognise the picture portrayed of this area in some of the letters of objection. Prior to the submission of the application, CFS wrote to the neighbouring occupiers to provide them with details of the proposal. They also held a community consultation event on Thursday, the 2nd of July, which was via a Zoom meeting, and I think there was approximately 8 to 10 residents spoke at that meeting. From the recording of the Zoom meeting that I listened to, the applicants seem to have conducted themselves in a professional and reasonable manner, trying to genuinely answer questions and concerns of residents, but they were met with great opposition nonetheless. There does seem to be a possible misunderstanding of what is being proposed with residents regarding this home as something for unruly teenagers, and the applicant's explanation that this is in fact a supported living facility to help selected young people between the ages of 16 and 18 learn the skills they need to live independently and progress in life. The 6 teenagers who would live in the residence all would have to sign up a contract of conduct, which is quite rigorously, if we're led to believe, quite rigorously enforced in order that they can move into this facility. It has 24-hour supervision by a member of staff on site. They have to be in employment or further education. They have limited strict visiting days and times, 3 times a week between the hours of 4 PM and 10 PM. Any visitors have to be vetted by the police and local authority, and visitors are only allowed in communal areas, so they can't go up to the rooms, and have to be out of the premises by 10 PM. The young people, if they don't stick to the agreements that they've signed up to, can be removed off this facility and they lose the opportunities they've actually signed up for. So it's not in their interest really to actually try to, flout any of this. In conjunction with the fears of crime expressed by the residents, a lot of the comments have been made as to the possible dangers to the children in the nearby school, along with disturbance and upset and fear being caused to elderly occupants of the old people's bungalows in the surrounding streets. However, there doesn't appear to be any actual evidence to support these views, and it suggests that the views are based on fear and assumption and conjecture. Notably, there have been no objections by either the school or the police to this application. It does seem that the residents living closest to the site have sort of, they've been whipped up into a real frenzy of fear over this, and this has been expressed in meetings that have been held at the home of one of our, the objectors, Peter Flitcroft, who's going to speak after, and obviously his councillor wife. They live just across from the site, and as is their right, it's been made very clear they don't want this on their doorstep and will fight tooth and nail to try and stop this application succeeding. They've successfully enlisted the help of 2 of their own former councillor, who will speak, or have and will speak on this application as well. There are those who suggest that the meetings were held inappropriately due to the COVID lockdown and in breach of the guidance issued on social distancing, as people were too close together and not wearing masks. But the desire to stop this application has actually gripped part of that community and takes precedence, perhaps over any other consideration. And I'm left wondering, what is the answer? What is the balance on this? And it's perhaps in order to provide the necessary safety net for residents, as this was originally an application for a temporary change of use. I know it doesn't say that on the application now, but the temporary change of use, which this would enable concerned residents to see that the conditions and the applicants are, who are, the applicants are willing to accept these conditions and adhere to them. It would make sure that they could actually witness that these were being adhered to. I hope that the committee might agree that a temporary change of use, which is what it started out as, might be a more appropriate way to ensure that the fears of residents can be addressed and provide the all-important exit strategy. If things go wrong. Hello.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. You've had your 5 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Heslop, please.
Thank you, Chair. Many residents of Bradford Street feel let down by previous planning decisions, especially tirers in this area. And for the application now before you, residents feel that they need to express the opinions during the decision-making event in the hope of impressing on officers, councillors their own concerns. The company, CFS as growth, as in recent years, has been quite simply exponential. And it is far from clear that the growth is generic, based on gaps in service, doing things differently, or indeed speculative. We are, of course, seeing many private companies making profits on the back of social care, housing benefit, and it is not clear just exactly how this company appears to be growing. The evidence presented in the company's accounts and at the residents' meeting simply did not stack up. Average 16 employees across 7 centres providing round-the-clock care. Each employee would need to work 85 hours per week, and that does not take into consideration sick leave. Indeed, the Children's Commissioner for England told the BBC on the 9th of September 2020 that this type of scheme, and I quote, allows for a high profit making without checks and balances that are seen in other care settings. Having attended the company's online meeting with residents, it was evident that people simply did not accept the probity of the company, especially when it came to this application, and many felt that it was part of a calculated process through a succession of planning applications, all aimed at achieving its ultimate goal, or in other words, results by stealth. Residents also refused to accept that the change of use was due to COVID-19. Any reduction in the need for office space due to working from home is completely offset by the rapid expansion of the company that would still need offices for administration and training. Unregulated care homes. The proposed change of use would result in supported accommodation or semi-independent homes for young people and would be unregulated. It is probably instructive to look at the very recent developments in this field of care, and I would draw members to the Child Commissioner for England, Anne Longfield, comments again on the BBC on the 9th of September this year, in which she states that these unregulated homes should be banned. I would also draw members to point 33 of the officer's report, which states that the Council's Children's Services Department stated that the development is quite large comparison to other facilities in the community, and due to the nature of the care provided by CFS may cause difficulty. Of course, it is important to remember that our young people who have left care are given the very best opportunities, and semi-independent living is an important stepping stone in the road to settled adulthood and into the move into mainstream accommodation. However, this application appears to be on a scale that may have the opposite effect, and rather than achieving successful outcomes, may have a hugely detrimental impact on the future chances of the young people. The location. Despite my request to Children's Services for substantial data in respect of children in care in Falmouth, I received an email advising that there are not significantly more looked after children from Bolton placed in Falmouth area, which appears to reinforce a suggestion from residents that Falmouth is already accommodating its fair share of some of the challenges associated with looked after children. Bradford Street is less than 200 yards from the Salford boundary, with Little Bolton and Walton being adjoining towns. Newbury starts where Bradford Street ends. Whilst I very much welcome the initiatives by GMP to reduce violence and criminality in Falmouth, it is noted that Newbury was one of 6 areas within Greater Manchester, the others including Central Manchester and Salford, that are taking part in this initiative. There are already huge concerns amongst residents about young people from other areas coming to Bradford Street, and I will quote just one of the many messages sent to me just in the last 4 weeks this is, and this is a resident who said, there are scores of teenagers getting drunk and smoking wacky backy, and this is on the main field, which is about 20 yards from the entrance of the proposed application. I would dearly love amenities to come back to Falmouth in the form of the college and youth facilities such as Bolton Lads Clubs and Girls Club, or even a satellite centre as enjoyed in other parts of the borough. However, I am not convinced that the amenities as indicated at point 26 of the report actually exist, unless of these kids, these young people, sorry, like Crown Bowling. Finally, it is my firm belief that this application fails to comply with CG4 of the core strategy.
You've had your 5 minutes.
Okay, and one sentence, and particularly strategic vision of the council by helping to ensure that these needs of the whole of the community, inclusive of age, are met. And if allowed to proceed, would not provide the very best opportunities for these young people that are leaving care. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. We now have an objector, Peter Flitcroft. Mr. Flitcroft, you have 3 minutes, please, to address the meeting and then take any questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the vast majority of objectors to this. Residents object to this application in the strongest possible terms. We do not trust CFS Kerr. They have lied to residents, not fully told the truth on their planning application, and ignored conditions issued with their last planning approval. They previously stated to residents that the building would remain an office facility operating under office hours and would never be used for facilities such as are being proposed. Residents will not be fooled again. CFS Kerr are a commercial organisation who are using COVID-19 as a commercial opportunity with regard to this property, without any cognizance of the impact on the local community. Rooms will be filled to provide the best commercial returns. This does nothing to allay the fears for the safety and security of residents. Contrary to their planning statement, the office is not vacant. It has been used regularly over the past 10 weeks. During the Zoom consultation on the 2nd of July, no safeguarding measures for residents were put forward by CFS apart from contacting police. Residents were unimpressed with the attitude of CFS management and their lack of empathy with issues raised, and this is clearly demonstrated in the volume of objections. 57 objections were submitted, showing the depth of concern that residents have with this proposal, a key concern being whether this is a safe and suitable location for 24/7 supported living. The immediate area is residential and includes St Peter's School, 81 purpose-built properties for over 55-year-olds, and at least 22 other properties with residents aged 55 plus. Nearly 90% of the local properties house people over the age of 55, and all of them are fearful of this application. They are frightened that there will be a substantial increase in youth activity in the area, which is already blighted by antisocial behaviour and drug use. Referencing Bolton Council's strategy points CG4 and S1, this proposal is not compatible with the surrounding occupiers. It will generate additional nuisance and create a negative impact on the privacy, safety and security of residents. At residents' meetings, safety and security...
One final sentence, please. You've had your 3 minutes. One final sentence, please.
CFS Kerr referred to Bradford Street as solvent and prosperous. While there is a strong neighbourhood community, solvent and prosperous are not the words that reflect the levels of this crime. Drug use and antisocial behaviour is rife. Recent weeks have seen a drugs raid and a drug-related case within 30 metres and a knife-related incident with use on the park.
Thank you, Mr. Flitcroft. Thank you. Members, any questions, please? Thank you, Mr. Flitcroft. Can I invite Danielle, please, to speak to the support of the application?
Thank you, Chair.
Hi, I'd just like to start by thanking you for the opportunity to present in person. CFS Care is a growing and innovative provider of foster care services and supported accommodation. We are passionate about enabling young people to have the best start in life, and by providing the right support, this will enable a young person to transition to live independently and be successful. CFS Care is proud to share that we recently completed the Pearson's North West Field tender, for which Bolton is the host local authority, and we hope to support local authorities with their lack of capacity across the North West. During these unprecedented times of COVID, there is an increased need in home working arrangements, and at the same time, sadly, The current climate has seen a higher number of young people entering and then leaving the care system. This has meant that there's now more need than ever before to support these young people. Therefore, with the vacant premises and the urgent need for increased facilities, we feel it is important to provide the vital services for care leavers. All of our staff engaged in a robust training programme to be able to support our young people appropriately. We are structured in a way that provides a living support worker and additionally offers support from the management team, comprising of a team lead per service, a locality manager, service manager, referral manager and me as the director. Support is provided within working hours and on an out of hours working rota system. Our service model is for up to 6 young people to live in the property with 1 member of staff on site 24/7. A second member of staff is on call 24/7, and a third member of staff provides extra day support through the week to enable completion of certain tasks and appointments. These young people require support and not care, and they have a choice. They agree to sign a document to say that they will engage with our services. We have a robust matching process to ensure.
I'm sorry, we've lost your link there.
We have developed an outstanding pathway independence framework that is AQA accredited and evidences progress and achievement. We have 6 properties across the Northwest, and one of these services is in Bolton. There have been no complaints from the community. We have 85% of all of our young people that are engaged in education, employment or apprenticeship, and we've managed to successfully provide positive transition pathways to independence for 100% of our planned leavers, all demonstrating the success of this model. We've applied for temporary change of use in response to COVID, which has led to greater need for accommodation. When the COVID situation is under more control, it may be that we need to reduce our supported accommodation and revert back to office space. The proposed change of use would support the strategic vision of the council as set out in the current local plan. Is also a policy compliant proposal, and the proposal is also in line with the general objectives of the National Planning Policy Framework.
Time up.
Premises,
Thank you.
deliver high quality supported
Thank you.
accommodation.
One sentence, please.
Therefore, respectfully request that you grant our scheme temporary planning permission.
Thank you.
Sorry for this.
Thank you very much.
I've got a really poor connection. I'm really sorry.
It's all right. Don't worry. I think we've got the substantive part of your presentation. I've got a number of questions, please. If you could just hold on the line, please. So, Councillor Peel, first of all.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the applicant? This is obviously a change of use application, so unusually we're not talking about buildings and structures and that type of thing. We're talking about usage only. So I think it would be quite helpful, considering some of the comments we've already heard before yourself, if you gave us some kind of indication of the journey that your young clients take. I know people would have quite different experiences, but what is the typical life journey of the young people in your care, and what is the experience that they have in your care and moving on from that into adulthood? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll explain that. So most of our young people are either being in foster care, or they're coming from a home environment where they need support, or they're coming from a residential children's home. I just want to make a point that we are not an unregulated care home. We do not provide care. We're not a children's home. We are a supported accommodation service for care leavers, and we fully support working to a regulated standard, although that we're unregulated, and very much in support of becoming regulated in the future. Our Placements Northwest submission to Bolton approved our level of quality, and what happens is a young person will be referred via Placements Northwest that's appropriate for leaving the care system, that's ready to be supported into independent living. They come to us and we look to see where they may match against one of our services, see what we can do to meet that young person's individual needs foremost, and then we look to see if they match alongside another young person and can live in harmony with other young people in the house. We then set about looking at a personal individualised independence to pathway plan for that particular young person. So what skill sets do they need? What do they need to learn to become independent. We engage them, re-engage them, or engage them in education, or perhaps more recently with a couple of our young people who actually live in Bolton, we've managed to secure apprenticeships for them young people. Those young people will continue to live with us, and we will work through their pathway plan and deliver the accredited scheme of AQA. And when we can evidence that they are ready and have developed the skill set to be able to move on, we then transition them on into post-18 services. We're currently working with a housing association. We're putting together a service level agreement where we can work with them to actually plan a transition pathway for young people that are turning 18, ready to live on their own, but they'll be supported by the housing association as they move on into adulthood. That is the majority of our young person's journey. I think it's really important to talk about the fact that the young persons engage in our services. So the difference between care and support is that the young people have the autonomy to choose a supported accommodation living service and whether they want to engage with that service. And what's key for us as a provider is that the engagement is there. If we evidence that a young person is remotely not engaging with our service, we would report back to the referring local authority to suggest that perhaps this young person's not quite ready for this service and needs to revert back to a care setting or a higher level of needs support service.
Thank you very much. Councillor Newell, please, question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'd like to ask the applicant, I've looked at the plans of the building and the bedroom's very large and you have 3 large attic rooms. Do you have any plans to increase capacity of this home? Because I do think it is, I agree with, I think it's Children's Services that have made the comment. It does seem quite a large building for 6 residents. So have you got any plans to increase capacity here?
Absolutely not. The building is a large building. It's absolutely suitable for the age category of the young people we've got. So in terms of it was a children's home, it would be a very large building for young children, but we're talking 16 to 18-year-olds, young adults. So space is of the essence really for those young people. We wouldn't intend to increase capacity of the number of young people living in the building. That's not what we would do. If we were going to use any of the external or the internal space in the future, that would be for development of activities for young people. We've got no plans to convert the loft spaces that you refer to. That's not in our plans. Our plan at the moment was literally, we were using it as offices, and it's just become redundant because of the current situation, and who knows how long that's going to be. And we work closely with the commissioners in Bolton, and there is an increased level of need across Bolton's commissioners and other close local authorities for supported living accommodation. What we said was we would look to support them while this need was there. As and when COVID reduces, hopefully, and we're able to get back to a normal working life, then the need for offices may return. We just wanted to be able to utilise the space that we've got for the young people who need our support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shanking, can I be clear? You want to speak in the debate rather than ask a question? Is that right?
I want to do both.
Right.
I want to speak to the applicant, and I also want to speak in the debate. Okay.
We'll take your question first, then, please. Question.
It's not in the debate. I want to actually speak to the applicant. Okay.
It's a question, and then I will call you later.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I hope that's not been very confusing for you, Miss Applicant, but there we go. All it is, I just want to ask, you mentioned about the fact that you'd had 100% success rate, and I just wondered if you could actually give me some indications of how many young people that actually means. Does it, I presume you're meaning that have actually left the care situation and have gone out into the world and have been successful. So I was just wondering if you could give me some idea on the actual figure? Thank you.
Absolutely. We only established in 2018, so we're only 2 years old. So the number of care leavers have not been massive. However, over the last 12 months, we've had a higher intake of young people accessing our new developed services. And in this last 12 months, 8 young people that have left our services have managed to transition positively out of our services. Whether that be that we positively transitioned them to a different service that is more appropriate to their needs, or whether we've managed to transition them into independence and in a less supported manner. 8 is the number that we're looking at the moment, and I've got 3 potentially leaving in the next month or 2, and then another one in December, all leaving very positively, engaged in college or apprenticeship. And we are working with the Housing Association for a positive move on for their own tenancies.
Can I just ask as well, do you have links with backup at all?
No, I do have them on one of my contacts, but not directly at this moment, no.
Okay, right, thank you.
I've got a final question then from Councillor Darvish. Councillor Darvish.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, you mentioned that there's no plans to increase the number of people living in the accommodation beyond 6.
That's go back to planning.
Sorry?
Sorry.
Okay, so isn't it the case that if you go over 6, then you've got to tick additional boxes into the building regs, safety issues, so it's actually probably costs you a lot more to go more than 6. Is that probably a fair assumption?
No, for us, that's not particularly something that's in our thought processes. It just is our model that for communal living properties, which are classed as our Tier 1 services, where they provide 24-hour support 7 days a week and no more than 6, just because our robust matching processes wouldn't want to match any further than that in that particular type of service. If it were more of a flat-based model and you had, say, a number of apartments, you may be able to support more young people together. But really, the number is down to the appropriate matching, and we successfully match 5 or 6 people, depending on the size of the house.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel. We come then to the debate. I've got Councillor Sharrington, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that in my ward, we do actually have a number of places for people with difficulties. And also one of them actually relates to young people of this age and how we support them. We have no problem with any of these places. And I don't see why that would be the case here either. I supported Backup when I was mayor. They were one of my charities who do a similar sort of thing to this and do an excellent job in actually turning youngsters around and getting them so that they understand how to pay bills and so on and everything before they're actually out there in the real world. And it makes a huge difference to them and stops them from finishing up being yet another person who is on the streets and homeless. And I do think that there is a need for this, and I do think that these people who actually work in these services do an excellent job. What I would like to say as well is that if the neighbours were so worried about this sort of property being used for lots of people in it, they could have actually just gone for change of use and made it back to a house. And then they could have actually had 6 people in there of all sorts. And they wouldn't have had to come for planning for that. They could have just done it. And they could have had a house in multiple occupation. And there wouldn't be anything that they would have had to come to planning for. Because unless it's over 6, you don't need to come here. So I do find it really, really unbelievable that they can't be supported, because these people, these youngsters will actually have support in there from people who are going to help to look after them. Not saying they're caring for them, but they'll make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. That wouldn't happen if they had a house in multiple occupation. So they want to think about how bad it could be rather than actually, and start thinking a bit more positive about what they're trying to do with these young people and actually getting them back into the community, getting them into the community with a proper roadmap of what they're going to do with the rest of their lives, which I think is admirable. So I will be putting my support to this and I will be moving approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charrington. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I've got about 7 matters which are related to material matters I need to raise, and then just one comment because we've had a number of contributions, so thank you very much. The first thing I want to say is the residential area. I'm not sure it really meets the designation of quiet residential area. Only because there is a sizable primary school and that's near the vicarage. That's St Peter's primary school, and that's a crossover on Alexandra Street. So I'm want to judge this application very fairly indeed. The vicarage, the building, is a dwelling within its own site. It's got and we've seen on the diagrams that it's got a distinct boundary with a garden area, and that is off the footway, affords it some privacy. Then the change of use, of course, from office to residential, and that is moving from a trade permission, that's what that was, the office use, a trade permission, to residential, and that in itself is known, is it not, to free up parking availability when you do something like that. And I do accept that residents in the area, of course, for themselves and for their visitors, in this area parking is a premium. So I did feel that actually that would be one thing of note. Again, the office use did have some opening restrictions. Again, I've thought about that, and that was, of course, a planning permission that and the company mentioned this because they've had that office use permission. That was B1 for trade, and I thought about that, and I've come to understand that certainly in planning terms, that's surely about the size of the building, of course. I mean, we know today, we've heard all the details about the 6 bedrooms and the living quarters and so on. It's sizable. So I now understand why there were some restrictions on office use, because it's such a big, it would be such a big offering for trade. Now the application, of course, is to return to residential. The next item I do want to just speak to is what we've heard about something in the papers, and I've looked at those words very carefully because we've got a statement from Children's Services that gives a view on the company, of course, that they're persuaded by the company, and of course Children's Services will do that in terms of offers from companies that are providing services for young people. And I look very carefully at the other matters, and I think the statement also in the bundle says, it may lead to potential areas of complaints from the local community. I read that carefully and I felt that the emphasis is very much on may, and the emphasis is very much on potential issues. And again, I've thought about many planning documents I've read, and actually I find that those paragraphs can be found in many different documents, just reminding really that there has to be good communication with the local area, and I found that type of paragraph in applications for student dwellings, HMOs, studio apartments, blocks of flats and so on. I find those types of paragraphs to be, if you like, catch-all paragraphs. I'm not highly persuaded by that paragraph at all on material matters. I'm not sure about the position. All I've heard today is that perhaps somebody has been seen inside this building, even though it's not really been occupied for offices for 8 or 9 months. And I thought, well, you know, I don't know what that really means, but somebody may have gone back there. I really don't know. But what had struck me when I thought about this from the bundle is that I find that residents start to feel anxious about buildings that are not occupied. Buildings that again maybe have their own setting, are a bit isolated, and I'm not sure. I mean, it feels like a material matter because it's about what's happening with the building, and I thought I'm going to consider that today. Actually, this is an application for a good use of a building. Another matter, of course, is use of the building, and it has been made clear today that there's going to be a contract for each person that lives there, and that they're going to be an educational work. The inhabitants are going to sign, if I can call them that, the young people. I'm trying not to call them tenants because I don't know whether that's the right term. They're going to sign what sounds like a living agreement, basically, with the CSF company. They're going to be required to sign. That feels like something where you seek to engender a responsible way of living in people who have possibly come from difficulties and have to have that bit more input to understand how to live responsibly. I'm fine with that. I will say then at the end of that comment on those that are going to occupy that part of material matters, the occupancy of the building, CSF company will need to up its game with community relations, with community dialogue on what its offer is in that building and in the area of Farnworth and Kersley, please. And then one extra comment I do need to make. I'm going to tell you that I'm seconding the proposal for approval of this application. I just want to say that it was mentioned that the Children's Commissioner has taken a position of being against unregulated care, and we've been told that this is an application that involves unregulated care. I won't say too much because it's not really a planning matter at all. I recognise that, Chairman, or possibly not a planning matter. But what I want to say is it's the role of the Principal Independent Advocate Children's Commissioner for England to state these views on rights and so on, and appropriateness from time to time. And I want to be fair and tell you that I've also read statements from Anne Longfield, the Children's Commissioner, on regulated care as well. And it's no surprise that from time to time the Children's Commissioner will give views that might be a bit difficult on both unregulated care but also from time to time on regulated care. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Newall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a great believer in supported living. It provides a vital service for some of our most vulnerable residents of all ages. This particular facility is aimed at our younger people. And I'm very glad to see that the late list and the applicant has offered some kind of clarity as to what supported living is, because I do think, judging by some of the comments I've heard today, that there is a confusion here of just what supported living is. It isn't a care home. It's not a care home, this, for juvenile delinquents or problem children. These are children who don't have the benefit of a family support. And what supported living does is it puts that support in place so that these children can transition into independent living. The facility that we already have in Bolton, the one on Berry Road, is actually in my ward. And I had heard of no problems with it, certainly no complaints to me. So I checked with my ward colleague, Councillor Warren, the other day, and she has no complaints from residents about that facility either. In fact, quite the opposite. As I say, these are vulnerable children. I do agree and I do understand that residents have concerns, and I totally understand the concerns of residents. It's fear of the unknown, it's fear of the other, and it's fear that this facility is going to be something that it quite clearly isn't. And I think I would like to offer reassurance as a ward councillor in a ward where a facility like this operates. Reassurance that, as I say, that this isn't what I think they are being led to believe that it is going to be. Supported living is not a care home. It is exactly what it says. It is supported living. So I will support this application, and I would just like to add that if there are any residents watching or listening to this who have concerns, that this will be very closely monitored. There are people who work there that will make sure that this isn't a problem to residents. Children's Services will make sure that this isn't a problem for residents, and the welfare of all the residents, as well as the residents who will live in this facility, will be a major concern for all involved. So I'd like to offer that reassurance to residents. And like I say, Chair, I would like to offer my support to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. Councillor Peel.
Just waiting to go live.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Councillor Newell used the word reassurance, and I think that is the key to this. There's been a lot of very good explanatory comments made, starting off with Councillor Cunningham, who was the only person, ward councillor, to correctly assess this situation. Quite frankly, the comments from Councillor Patterson and Heslop really did surprise me. I wasn't expecting those types of comments, so I was actually impressed with Councillor Cunningham. It just shows you're never too old to learn. I had a feeling it could have been the other way about, based on your perceptions of where people are or might not be, actually, after all, on the political spectrum. But I've been on planning committee for over 20 years without a break, and I've seen these types of applications before. I've seen crowds of hostile people at a location over in Bolton West, which I'll not mention, when I was vice chair of planning committee, where it made this this reaction seem like a picnic, and people getting completely the wrong end of the stick about vulnerable young people who are being offered a family home setting. And that particular location in West Orton went very quiet within a few months. There wasn't an issue at all. As we all knew at the time, it was about reassurance. And I think ward councillors have such a vital role to play in communicating with their constituents, to allay their fears, to actually talk to them about their misconceptions, to challenge fake news and rumours that tends to get out of control. Because as Councillor Sherrington said, we have it in Tonwood Hoffward multiple units or facilities, whatever you want to call them, not just for young people. We have facilities for older people. We have facilities for people who may be perceived by the community as being far more problematic. And all of these throughout our wards, and by the way, to Councillor Heslop, they do tend to be, on the whole, within the inner wards of Bolton. All of these facilities operate with no issues from the community, and that's how you run it, because we're never ever, God forbid, we ever get back to a situation where you have these huge monolithic children's homes type settings where there's crowds of people in there like some kind of institution. We've not been doing that for decades now. Young people who have had unfortunate circumstances in their life are brought up in as close to a family unit setting as is possible. And that's why you have houses like this, or sometimes smaller houses, smaller numbers of people. They work best, because just because people, young people, have had unfortunate starts to life doesn't mean to say they're any less part of the community as anybody else and for their future and for their future development, it's massively important that they're made to feel part of the community, that they're made to feel as though it's just like any other family house. That is so important for their future. I would say that these settings work best when there are smaller numbers, and so I definitely wouldn't like to see over 6, otherwise we end up getting back to that type of old-fashioned institution that we used to have in the past. So no more than 6. I'm reassured by the assurance from the applicant that there's no plans to extend. But finally, Councillor Cunningham doesn't need any convincing. But to Councillor Patterson and Councillor Heslop, please engage with I think this is going to go through. Please engage with the applicants. Please reassure your constituents and Mr. Flitcroft that what they think in the worst case scenario is going to be the case is not at all. And there are many, many, many examples around the borough that will show them that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. It has been proposed and seconded. This application be approved. Mr. Mulholland, can we take the vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's been proposed by Councillor Sherrington, seconded by Councillor Howard for approval. No other amendments. For, against, abstain. Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Darvesh.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Mistry.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
Decides to do.
For.
Councillor Newall.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Sanders declared an interest and is not currently in the meeting. Councillor Sherrington.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
That's carried, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.